We're back with Game 9 of the World Chess Championship between the boss, Magnus Carlsen, and the challenger, Ian Nepo. And let's get to it. And I find it interesting that the age-old adage of best by test 1e4 is starting to gradually go out the window. Because as we're seeing in World Championship matches, e4 seems to be a very sophisticated draw offer with black playing e5. c4, on the other hand, is explosive. And let's get it. 1c4. e6. And we could very well get a transposition into Queen's Gambits and Catalans if white plays d4, followed by d5. But g3. And I found this moment very interesting because Magnus, I feel at this point in the match, is still trying to avoid any nasty preparation, and the main line here is definitely going to be something like knight f6, knight f3, bishop e7, castles, castles, d4, and we're back in the main line Catalan theory. Well, there's a couple different options here, and I really like Magnus's choice with d4 because you're a tempo behind in a colors reversed Benoni or Benoni-esque position. So if you're familiar and comfortable with the structures, that's definitely an option here. Another good option, as white hasn't committed to d4 yet, we can play d takes c4 at this juncture. But let's get back to the main game. d4, knight f3, and another very interesting moment. The main line is c5, but that opens up white to be able to play colors versus Binko positions. Knight c6 protects the d-pawn, prepares e5. We don't even need to touch the c-pawn in this line, so I feel that this is the most accurate move for black in the position. Castles. All the action is going to be happening, and at some point the break is going to be e3. So normally in these structures, white has to play e3 at some point, or is much worse, and they want to play a3, b4, so as soon as they play a3, you play a5. d3 was played in the main game, and I think these moves are kind of interchangeable. White ends up in the main game going knight e2 and knight b3 and gets a reasonable position pretty quickly. As we can tempo the bishop has to retreat. So I thought about going a5. So now if knight d2, we've got a4 type ideas. But if e3 immediately, I think there's more flexibility with knight ge7 than what happened in the main game. But hey, it works. So knight f6. Knight bd2, a5, and I feel objectively white got what he wanted out of the opening. He's got a little bit to work with here. Dynamic center, good piece play, a bit of an imbalance. So if this is white playing for a win, what has he been doing with all these a4 anti-marshals? Just throwing that idea out there. Bishop's bad, got to work on that. This bishop wasted time going to c5 and back to e7, and we no longer have maintained the center. White definitely has got some edge here. It's got a little bit of pull. Knight g4, going after the b pair. Understandably, can't have that. And d4, starting to get a little bit of play and pressure. a4, grab, grab. Knight c5. And the a4 pawn is hit, so I can appreciate Magnus's move, but I definitely would look at the most critical continuation with e5. It makes a mess. But objectively, from the standpoint of the match situation of being up 2-0, keep making him work in the position. e5 creates the type of position that white's looking for to try to outplay his opponent. a3, it may be worse, but it just gets rid of a weakness. Now you've got to come up with something. Here, I really, really much prefer playing b4. As we get space, we cover the knight in a different way. I think this is the first consideration in the position. If you try to grab the pawn, white's going to get so much more play. h3, kick the knight back, and we're using the open file for attacking purposes. b4 is in it to win it. B takes a3. the pawn structure is crippled, and we're going to see over the next, say, 5 moves, Magnus is going to gradually work the pawn structure and fix some issues. Knight b3. All right, let's bring this guy back. We got our pawn. h6. Safety first. And I considered the move rook a4 here, just to keep an eye on the c-pawn, maybe follow up with queen b4, and you have flexibility. I definitely understand the need to get the bad bishop active, and this is a critical position. I didn't analyze too deeply here, but it feels a bit off to play knight e5. It's a natural move, but it's going to definitely allow for us to take on e5 at some point. And with the queen on b4, we're covering the b7 pawn. And with a little bit of calculation, we're able to get out of the mess. And this is dynamic equality. I'm not too worried about bishop takes b7, rook a4, hitting the c-pawn. The a-pawn's not going anywhere. It's kind of a fixed target. Black's definitely equalized here. And when I was looking at this position, because this was about when I woke up, I took a look at the game, I got to this point, and white was in a think. It's like, okay, I don't like the strong knight on g4. My first thought in the position was f3 to get the knight to simply go away. And I'm not too concerned with giving up material here, as I already have a pawn in hand. And after bishop e4, a line like rook takes c4 is met by rook e to c1, and the outside pass pawn could be annoying in some variations. The h6 knight could definitely end up in a scenario where after knight f5, it gets captured, and I don't know 100% the evaluation of the pawn structure there, or if the bishop's going to be better than the knight, but it's definitely an imbalance. I think in the very worst case scenario after rook ec1, white's going to be able to hold a very comfortable draw. So I was shocked, though, when white played c5, because I didn't need an engine to help me here. I asked the straightforward question immediately, which I hope you ask. If you're a pause your video type of person, here's the moment. Pause it, try to figure it out. All right, gave you a second to pause. Well, problem is the bishop on b7. He can't go anywhere. And now, I mean, I made no secret before the match, I wanted the boss to win. But I feel bad for the challenger at this point, because he played dynamic chess in the opening, what he's known for, what I was hoping to see this entire match. He got a very reasonable position. I felt white had good chances if move 27 f3 instead of c5. I think this point psychologically, it's jarring being down 2 points. And so much pressure, the entire world watching. It's easy to crack under such circumstances. So hopefully he's able to stop the bleeding. And honestly, at this point, I'd like to see the dynamic, aggressive style that he's known for. And I'm hopeful that he can put a win on the board in order to save some face and some rating. And yeah, best of luck to him in the rest of the games. Let's see how Magnus traps the bishop and gets the win here. f3. Rook e4, encouraging the rook to come after the b. And after rook b8, it's a goner. Another pawn falls. All white's hopes rest with the passer. But I really like, one, the passer's not going anywhere. c5, looking to be able to capture on a4. Very important. Rook d8, not rook a8. Rook a8 would be met by knight b6. Knight b6, you can easily play something like bishop c6 here and control the queening square. And after rook a8, it's still same story, different day. Bishop gets to the point where it's covering the rook. The pawn will never be able to promote. The knight has a free hand in the position to continue harass or eventually make his way over and win the pawn. So the challenger resigns with the white pieces, and Magnus racks up his third win in the World Championship. And I'm hoping this is going to quiet the haters for a while, as Magnus is really showing his class, patience, and especially with the 136 move win, his discipline and tenacity, the will to win, the will to dominate. So let's see if the challenger can strike back in the remaining games. It's going to be interesting.